Hello, guys. Something special is happening in here. That's right. It's Brackets and Jackets. Bringing it back for Brackets and Jackets. Special Epstein Island edition. That's right, folks. Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, the man with the island, which is suspiciously close to Haiti. That's right. You see, this man, Jeffrey Epstein, is funding lots of people. He's funding lots of people on the street to make sure his shit doesn't get out. That's right. They want the record sealed. And they're paying a lot of people. Epstein's paying a lot of people. Oh boy. For one, he's got a whole Mossad media matrix in America. And I would bet you anything that Alex Jones is one of them. Prove me wrong. That's right, Cappy's in the portal. Cappy's in the portal. Cappy's in the building with songs about Epstein. It's Breakfast Jackets Epstein edition. Guys, I had some epiphanies today. I had some real big epiphanies about some guys. A big network of guys and spies and lies and liars. Alright, think about this for a minute, okay? The guy in Portland, the scientist that just got busted for producing CP, that guy is 1 degree of separation away from Epstein. Epstein, the investor that lives in West Palm Beach, Florida. I know a guy who lives in West Palm Beach, Florida as well. Investor as well. Also involved as well. And all is not well with these guys. The Florida boys, the Glow boys, the Scott Israels of the world. You see, Epstein is Hillary Clinton. And Epstein is Haiti. And Epstein is a big network of media assets. By the way, did you know that Steve Bannon was going to that guy for money? Also, Epstein is Epstein Oprah. Epstein is Chris Tucker. You remember him. Epstein is also Kevin Spacey. Epstein is also Prince Andrew. Epstein is also... Who else is Epstein? Who else is Epstein? Tell me. You guys know? Who else is Epstein? Is Epstein Big Pharma? Is Epstein Bryan Singer? Is Epstein Naomi Campbell? Yep, all of the above. All of the above. Who is Epstein? Epstein is the keystone of a whole motherfucking matrix. And once you pull it out, it all falls down. Dersh was there too. That's right, we're dropping red pills every day. Dropping red pills in the best kind of way. This is Brackets and Jackets for the denizens of islands.
What's up, folks? This is Addy Ads, and this is Public Intelligence and the Epstein Files. We got a special guest today, Nadia L., who covered the Ghislaine Maxwell trial along with myself, and she has some family history, being from Ukraine, and then has a bit of an understanding, I think, that a lot of lay people don't, of that conflict. She admits she's not an expert, but I think her take will be valuable, as well as discussing the whole Epstein-Maxwell saga. So thanks for coming on the show, Nadia. And if you want to beef up your introduction, just so people who know who you are.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Let's see, who am I? I am a former New York City public school teacher turned YouTuber in the making, journalist in the making. So I lost my job back in October of 2021. because of the mandates and my refusal to comply with them. So that cost me my job, but it also gave me a lot of free time. And with free time and living in New York City, I was able to attend the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, which is actually where I met Addie. So yeah, I think second day of trial, I came up to you. I was like, hey, don't you live stream with Ryan Dawson? Like, I've seen your work before.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, it was the second day. Yeah, I thought it was the first day, but yeah, you're right. It was the second day.
Mhm.
And you mentioned you lost your job for refusing to do the shot mandate. What was the hook point for you for learning about the Epstein-Maxwell network? Do you remember when you first came to knowledge of it?
I mean, it's a little blurry, but I remember throughout the years, I knew who Epstein was. I would just hear snippets about him. You know, he was this billionaire. He knew all these famous politicians and celebrities, and he had his island. But beyond that, I didn't know anything else. I had no idea who Maxwell was, which is, I'm sure, how they wanted it all to be. But let's see, I think it was probably in 2020. It was the lockdown. We were all stuck at home. We had nothing to do. So I just went on a whole conspiracy theory. I went down that whole rabbit hole. And that's where I learned who Epstein was, who Maxwell was, you know, their ties to intelligence, who Maxwell's father was, you know, his ties to intelligence, all that stuff. And yeah, I guess that's kind of the rabbit hole I went down into.
Okay, so it was during the 2020 lockdown, basically, that you started to research this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Ryan Dawson was the first person you found that was talking about it?
Listen, everything I know, I owe to Ryan Dawson. He's great. Yeah, he's the expert. He's a human encyclopedia, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a topic he doesn't know something about.
Yeah.
So,
he's very knowledgeable. Great resource. And which interview of his, or was it like a solo broadcast? Do you remember?
No, it was most likely, I think, through Sean Atwood.
Okay.
Because that was before the whole censorship started. So that was when you could actually talk about this whole pedophile ring and human trafficking and all that stuff on YouTube before they just purged everyone. Mm-hmm. So I believe it was like a collaboration. Yeah, Sean and Ryan did. And then I really liked what Ryan was saying, and I got into his stuff. I looked at other topics he covered. I agreed with him on a lot of things.
Okay. Very nice. And what made you want to decide to attend the trial? Because initially when you started, you were just a citizen. You weren't really a reporter or a journalist.
Here's the thing. I was a teacher for 8 years, going on 9 years. I was so far from the whole world of court cases and trials and all that stuff. I didn't even know that the public could actually attend trials.
Oh, wow.
So this was all by coincidence. I knew about Maxwell. I was really, really excited that the trial was starting. And I was just on Instagram once, day one. Mm. And do you remember like the New York Freedom Rally, the anti-mandate activists?
Yep.
So they did a whole protest outside. Remember, they had a whole tent.
On the first day?
Yeah.
Okay, that's who that was. Yeah, there were some people were smoking weed in a tent outside.
There were some characters from what I've heard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were live streaming the whole thing. And during that live stream, that's where I learned that you could actually attend the trial. And you didn't have to have your, can I even say, your papers for that stuff.
Okay.
So after I saw that live stream, I was like, oh, I'm attending day 2 for sure.
Oh, wow. And you saw that on Instagram from the Freedom Rally folks. Okay.
Yeah, all thanks to them.
I don't think I saw them again. There were a lot of people who showed up on the first day that I didn't really see after that, just because they took off work, or you saw them at like the tail end of the trial. So the first day you attended, which was actually the second full day of court, is when you saw me. And then did you on the first day, did you plan to go and follow it through every single day as you did?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
You did? Okay. So once you decided, you were like, okay.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie. It was a bit boring to watch at times. And there's a lot of legal lawyer talk. So I was confused half of the time. But I was like, I'm definitely watching this whole thing for as long as I can.
And what did you think of it? What was your experience of it? Likewise, let's talk about the trial itself first. What did you think of how it went? I
don't even know where to begin.
Did you have expectations for how it might go?
I had expectations which were both high and low. I knew they were not going to go too deep into it. Mm-hmm. Like they weren't going to go after Les Wexner. They weren't going to go after who Maxwell was working for. But I also didn't think so much would be covered up. I didn't think we'd only have 4 victims that testified. And
Mhm.
also some of those victims, I mean, maybe there's one who we questioned, you know, yes, you're a victim, but how much does your story help right now in this trial? Because it
Mhm.
seems like your experiences were more with Epstein, and this is focusing on Maxwell.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember the second day it was like the pilots testifying. I'm like, what's
Yep.
the point of having these 2 pilots if they both have the same exact story? They didn't see anything, they didn't hear anything, but magically everyone that they saw was over the age of 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trial was disappointing, but I was very happy with the verdict.
Hmm.
Although now we're wondering, are they going to stick to this verdict? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and there was a lot of action today on the docket for Ghislaine Maxwell. There's a
Check it
hearing
out.
on the 8th for Scotty David, March
Mm.
8th, which is coming up here in about 2 weeks. And that is with regards to the JurorGate mistrial and the comments he made to the media. And that was Lucia Crowley, of course, who broke that story on The Independent. And yeah, so that just came out today. Is March 8th is going to be that hearing for Scotty David. It's going to be at 10 a.m. at the Thurgood Marshall Courthouse. So I'm going to be
You're
here.
going to be there?
Hopefully, I'll see you there, Nadia,
Yeah,
as well.
hopefully they'll let us in.
Yeah, that's the question. Really, is are we going to get let in? Which I thought was funny because I did an update yesterday on the previous docket entry. And they were basically arguing about the redactions pertaining to the mistrial motions, with the defense wanting everything redacted.
Yeah.
And now the government, all of a sudden, being very concerned about public right of access to judicial documents and court proceedings.
That's also the thing. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it.
I was talking, you had Roberta Glass on your show before.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her about this, about the redactions. Does the public really need to have all of this information?
Mhm.
And while it is nice to have this information, let's remember that this JurorGate fiasco that's happening, it was because too much info was released.
Mhm.
So I almost feel like, you know what, if you keep it redacted, you keep it hidden from the public,
Mhm.
you know what, maybe that might be better, because all the legal documents are still going to get filed. You know, the whole process is still going to be the same. It's just, you know, is the public going to step in again, and especially mainstream journalism, and kind of ruin things maybe?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, what about a call-in line? Don't you think there should have been one?
Yeah, that was different. That, I think, that of course the public has a right
Mhm.
to watch these trials.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that there was no call-in line is very questionable. I don't know a single trial that doesn't have a call-in line.
Mhm.
And the fact that also, I love how we all had to follow the COVID rules in the courthouse.
Mhm.
But Maxwell's family, there was no social distancing. They all got to sit down on that bench. Meanwhile, if we sat like this close at the trial, we'd get
Yep.
yelled at to sit
Yes.
further apart.
Yeah.
They were all scrunched together. Like almost all the siblings were there.
Yeah. Yeah. The last few days, I think pretty much all of them were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pointed out too in the Liz Stein story, saying they kind of got treated like
The
royalty.
victims.
Yeah.
Also, the victims were denied access to the courthouse. It's unfortunate. But also, these COVID rules made it so much tougher for everyone to get in.
Yeah.
We were all limited to 3 people to a bench. And
Yeah.
how many benches were open to the public? Like 2?
Yeah, it was every other was cordoned off, so you couldn't sit in it. And I talked to Brianna Jaggish last night, and she was expressing her disappointment in Lucia Crowley's story on Scotty David, which I think is an interesting point of discussion because it's kind of a journalism ethic question,
Mm-hmm.
and blurring or trying to delineate, being an activist or a reporter or a journalist, right? Did you agree with that, or do you think she should have waited? Or
she definitely should have waited.
Yeah.
And I mean, you kind of hinted that yesterday too. Who was in her ear?
Oh yeah, you watched my show. Thank you. Yeah.
We're not saying that we know. We don't know. Please don't sue us for defamation. We're just saying she was very close to a few questionable people who.
See, as the trial went on, there were kind of pairs or small groups that congealed Like the guy from Slate called us the conspiracists on
Yeah.
the 5th floor because it was kind of.
Which was awesome, though.
Yeah.
At first, I was offended, but then I was like, you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah, why not? Why not? It was kind of, it was like me, you, Roberta, Joe Neerman, Kristan.
New York Nadia was there, Cat Waters.
Yeah, and we all kind of pretty much went to the 5th floor every day in that jury box, more or less.
And it was fun.
It was, because you got to know people, and it was great having Mr. Neerman because he provided the legal explanations that nobody really had, and yeah, it was enjoyable in that sense. But going back to JurorGate, yeah, it did seem that like Vicky Ward was kind of taking Crowley under her wing a bit.
Yeah, this whole trial, it definitely, I mean, I don't know, maybe because you've done reporting for years. Maybe
Well,
you
not that
noticed
long,
it before.
but kind of long.
I mean,
It's like 2 years.
you have way more experience than me. But basically, you definitely see this kind of dynamic between the mainstream journalists and how they were a bit stuck up and to themselves, and then everyone else. You know, the independent journalists, from my experience, they knew way more than the mainstream ones. They were also a lot more friendlier.
Yeah.
It's not to say the mainstream people weren't nice. Some of them were.
Yeah.
You definitely see this kind of hierarchy, and it's kind of like, you're not good enough, so we're not going to talk to you.
Yeah, and one of them, I never bothered to ask her name because she was one of those types of people that I just knew I didn't want to get to know. Just the vibe, like in the verbal or the nonverbal body, the body language. It was the chick from ABC, and I guess she told Bree that like you're not a real journalist or something like that, and then she told me that my business card was not real. I don't know.
So who are you, ABC?
It was like a holographic business card or something. But the guy who worked for ABC, he was pretty polite to me. I only had one interaction with him. But I had many people reiterate that thought that there was kind of a
standoffishness.
Yeah, at first it was like unspoken, but then it was like spoken. It was the last day too. Someone else, I had never seen her even. It wasn't the ABC woman, as far as I recall. Basically said the same thing. She's like, all these fake reporters need to get out of the way or something.
Oh yeah,
like
we
that.
were outside.
Yeah, do you remember that? That was so weird. There was like somebody's like, they're here, or like they thought the Maxwell siblings were here, and there was like this like scrum, like
coming out.
Yeah, and then I found myself like standing right in front of the gate to where the lawyers. Sternheim walked like right in front of me, and as did the rest of the lawyers. So that like melee there for a split second, where people thought like the lawyers were coming out, ended up being fortuitous for me because I got a better position standing waiting for the lawyers to come out.
Yeah, but that was fun, getting yelled at saying we have to move out the way because we're not real journalists.
Yeah, and that was, again, somebody who just, as far as I could tell, probably showed up on the first few days and then the last day, which some people were like that.
I never saw her inside.
Yeah, but who else did you find? I mean, you came to know a couple other people right through the trial as well. Roberta, you were on her show recently, weren't you?
Yeah, a few weeks ago. Yeah, Roberta's great. You guys should check her out. Yeah, I got to know what was his name? Dave Paone.
Oh, yeah, he was cool. Yeah.
And it was funny. I saw him again. So I went to go watch the Sarah Palin trial for like a day and a half.
Oh, nice. Yeah, how was that?
I fell asleep at one point.
Yeah.
So, but the same guy who wrote the article from Slate about us being conspiracy theorists, he was there. And Dave Paone actually said, "Oh, hey, hi, how are you?"
Nice.
He seemed a little nervous.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Slate guy or Dave?
The Slate guy.
Oh,
Dave's kind of like judging him on,
Wow, that's funny. Well, he still follows me on Twitter, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, anybody else? I forgot about Dave Paone. He's great. He's from the Epic Times. He was a guy who like he didn't admit that he knew stuff he didn't, and he was like always working hard and learning. And he really, I think, came to understand the network and the trial quite well by the end of it. So,
which is how you should be. I mean, at one point he was even saying to us, "How do you know this stuff?"
Yeah.
How do you not?
Yeah, and he's not like corporate media, but he is a full-time I don't even know. How would you define that? That's kind of like a gray area, like those. Like,
Full-time reporter.
yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't say the Epoch Times is legacy media, though. Would you?
No, but I
Or-
would still say it's mainstream media.
Yeah,
It's just
sure.
more right wing,
Yeah.
even though a lot of their editors are actually left wing people.
Okay.
It's interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they are corporate media, but I guess. Yeah, they aren't legacy or even mainstream media. So that's a good example of, I think, an outlet that delineates those terms, because I think I certainly have conflated them before, for which obviously that's not the case. So yeah, there were some that were great, but as far as Ukraine, because you mentioned, well, obviously this morning we were seeing what's stuff popping off there with Putin supposedly invading
Ukraine. He's taking over.
Well, yeah. What's your take on that? And you mentioned too that it tied into, for you, the Epstein network too, right? Or not? Or just learning about it?
Yeah.
Because you said you got blackpilled by.
Yeah.
Was it like the 2014 Ukraine situation?
Yeah, it started in 2013, but yeah, and it went on to 2014 is when everything went insane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. I'll have to start with my background. So I was born in Donetsk, Ukraine, which is on the eastern side of Ukraine. It's in the Donbass area, which is now supposedly being invaded by Russians. It's not being invaded by Russians. Like, ask the people in those areas, they're all ethnically Russian, and they would gladly join Russia any day. So that's where I was born, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Mm-hmm.
I still have family that lives in Ukraine. So in 2013, where they started saying how, there's this revolution and the people are tired of the government. Meanwhile, I'm talking to my family who lives there, and they're like, that's not what's going on at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we're being taken over by the US government. They're coming in. They are, guys, it makes me a little emotional, but basically the US staged an insurrection in the capital in Kyiv, Ukraine. They gave funding to these neo-Nazi groups who are also nationalists. They are very anti-Russian. They don't think Russians deserve to live in Ukraine, even though we were all living there just fine for decades, hundreds of years. So their intention is they want to wipe out all the Russians in eastern Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So when the US gives them the money and the funding, you got the weapons. Of course, they're going to stage an insurrection in Kyiv.
And that was the Maidan, right?
That was the Maidan in 2013.
Yep.
So I'm a little scatterbrained. I'll try to keep it on point, but...
Oh, no, it's all right.
So, yeah. If you guys can remember, Victoria Nuland and Senator John McCain went to Ukraine in support of, we support this revolution. You don't support this revolution. You're funding a bunch of Nazis. You want to overthrow the government that they had in 2013, which they did. They overthrew that government and they replaced it with their own oligarch governments. So basically, you got rid of a president who didn't want to kiss your ass, and you brought in someone who's going to do everything that you're going to tell him to do. Mm-hmm. I believe that was Poroshenko back then. And so at the same time as all this is going on, as there's this revolution, which is an insurrection, there are groups on the eastern side of Ukraine who are basically saying, we don't want to be part of this new Ukraine. We don't support it. We don't like it. We want to be free and independent. So, of course, the western side of Ukraine, which is where the Nazis are getting funded from, they're not happy. So they're coming in and they're starting a war. They started to bomb schools. They were bombing senior living facilities, hospitals. And while all this is going on, the mainstream media, especially in the US, is saying, oh, it's not the Ukrainian army that's doing this. It's actually the Russian army that's coming in and invading Ukraine. Meanwhile, ask any person that was in eastern Ukraine, who was bombing you at this time in 2014 when the war really started to take off? And they would say it was the Ukrainian army. They say we felt safe when actually the Russian separatists would come in and they were the ones protecting us. So is that making sense so far?
Yeah. So it seems
all
like,
over the place.
And that's like the Azov Brigade, right? Or the Azov Brigade, AZOV, I believe it's called, the right wing. Also,
I'm not good with names.
Okay. There's another one. I think it's called Pravi Sector. Pravi means right?
Pravi, yeah.
Pravi, yeah.
Yeah.
Pravi Sector.
Yeah. So basically, think about it this way. When has the U.S. ever been accurate with all the wars that we've been involved with? In Syria, did Assad really gas his own people? No, that was just a bunch of bullshit lies that they used to get us into Syria. How about in Afghanistan, Iraq? Were there weapons of mass destruction? No. So the U.S. continues to make these lies up just so we could keep invading all these different countries. And what are we invading for? We're pretty much doing the bidding for another country. There's that. We're also selling weapons. I mean, how deep are we going to get into all of this?
Oh, we don't have to censor Nadia. We don't.
Okay.
And we should get into that too, especially you being who you are, being Jewish. But before we get to that country, let's stick to Ukraine. Or I guess you're talking about U.S. foreign intervention now.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't want to seem like I'm anti-American. I love this country and I love living here, and I'm very grateful for that. I just don't agree with our international policies. We shouldn't be invading these peaceful countries, starting a war there for what? Just so our government can profit from it? They're profiting from it, but meanwhile, it's our tax money that's funding it. It's our brothers, our sisters, our family that's going overseas to fight. And what are they fighting for? Just so someone else could become richer? It's insane. I mean, what war has ever worked in our favor?
Yeah.
At least for the last, 30 years, I would say.
Right. And many people, I've heard it contended that we are now transitioning finally out of the post-World War II world order, which was dominated by the United States, who, when you look at, I think, World War II, they got the most out of it for the least, I would say. When you look at how many men and women they lost, it was like 450,000. And then you compare that to the Russians, and they lost like
26 million.
Yeah, 28 or 26 million.
That's the
people.
thing too. And this is what frustrates me a lot with Ukraine is, like, our family, if you are from the former Soviet Union, you definitely have family that had to live through World War II. So you've heard stories from your grandparents, how they starved almost to death, how they had to hide, they were getting bombed at. Whether you lived in Russia, Ukraine, whatever country in the Soviet Union, they were all getting destroyed. And so Russians have this pride too over World War II and being able to defeat the Nazis. And so for all of a sudden the US to come in and start funding these Nazis in Ukraine, it's disgusting. It's like you're spitting on the graves. We've also had family members who fought in the war. Every single one of us had someone in our family who fought in World War II. So they fought to liberate you for what? Just so you could join these Nazis and continue to do what they did how many years ago?
Yeah.
It's just very disrespectful.
I was in Uzbekistan in 2018, and I was there at the time of the anniversary of Victory in Europe Day. So that was cool to see.
In May?
Yeah.
It's a huge holiday.
That's the 8th, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
And Uzbekistan is a former satellite of the Soviet Union, so that was really cool. Cool to see, and go to the local memorial, and they had all the wreaths of all the countries, and they had a flame burning. It might be one of those eternal flames that's always going, but it was burning there. And then they had like a statue memorial to the World War II, and that was in the capital of Uzbekistan, in Tashkent. So that was really cool to see it as a former Soviet satellite state.
Listen, the Soviet Union wasn't perfect. And I'm not a fan of communism, but I think also now people are talking about how Putin wants to, how he wants to bring back the Soviet Union. No, there's a difference. He's not trying to bring back the Soviet Union. He's trying to stop innocent people from being killed. And what's the way to do that? Unfortunately, you're going to have to take over certain regions of Ukraine, which are getting bombed at on an almost daily basis. Also, can we bring up remember in 2014, Crimea had a referendum. Okay. So, and Crimea is also on the eastern side. A lot of people said that, Russia stole Crimea from Ukraine. They didn't steal it. They had a legal referendum. Over 90% voted to be part of Russia. So that goes to show you, for everyone that thinks Russia is invading Ukraine, all these regions that are being taken over, they've wanted Russia to step in and become a part of their country. They're mostly all ethnically Russian. You have a referendum there right now in Donbass. I guarantee you, over 95% will vote to be part of Russia.
Okay. And what section of the country is that again?
That's the eastern side.
Eastern
So
side.
Ukraine, the west side of Ukraine is mostly ethnic Ukrainians,
Okay.
and the east side is ethnically Russians. But Ukraine it's like America. You know, you have the two main ethnicities, but you also have a lot of different minorities as well. You have Asians, people from the Middle East even. It's all a mixture of so many people, but predominantly it's the Ukrainians and the Russians.
Do you know enough to explain some cultural differences between Ukraine and Russia and the citizens and how they live?
The Ukrainians are all going to hate me. I really don't think there's that many differences between us.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, our languages are different, but...
And you said you are Russian descent or Ukrainian descent?
I'm Russian. So
Russian.
my mom is Jewish, my dad is Russian.
Okay.
But I mean, my mom grew up in the Soviet culture. So she's basically Russian anyway.
Okay.
So, I mean, honestly, if you put me and a Ukrainian person, can you even tell the difference between us? We both look Slavic. So
sure.
There's some slight differences, but we've also, in the Russian culture, you eat borscht, which is a soup. Apparently that soup is Ukrainian.
Oh.
So there's not, you know, our cultures are mixed. And I hate this divide that we're so different. Listen, we're Eastern Europeans. Like, cut it out where you say one is better than the other.
Yeah. It's like the, I think it's a sociological idea of the narcissism of likenesses where there's a tendency to dislike people or groups that are actually somewhat similar to you, or closer to you than not, right?
We're Eastern Europeans. Like, are you going to really be able to tell apart between me, a Romanian, or Ukrainian? You know, it's everyone kind of looks similar in a way. Yeah. And also, there's also the side of culture, you know? What about someone, let's say they were born in Africa, but then they came to Russia. And they spent their whole life there. Well, culturally, that person is Russian. Yeah. So I'm sure they probably feel more connected to Russia than Africa.
What do you think about Putin's motivations? Do you have any ideas about that, or?
So his motivation and what's happening in Ukraine right now?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, my idea is it's bringing peace. Because think about it. Since 2014, we've had this war. So innocent people, especially in the Donbass area in Donetsk, which is the town I'm from, they're Donetsk. Yeah, or I guess in English you could say Donetsk. Okay. I always say Donetsk.
Oh, okay. With Donetsk. Okay.
Donetsk. Yeah, that's my town. Is anyone from? No one's probably watching.
Any Ukrainians in the building? Let us know.
You probably want to shoot me right now. No, I'm sorry. So what was the question again?
I was
Putin's motivation.
Yeah. What do you think that is?
Honestly, it's to bring peace. Yeah. Because let's say in New York, we're getting bombed at on a daily basis. Wouldn't we expect someone to intervene and to stop this? So here's someone coming in, and they're pretty much putting an end to the Ukrainian army killing innocent civilians. You have to understand, the Ukrainian army wasn't killing other Russian separatists or the Russian army. They were killing innocent people going to daycare.
Their own people.
You could say, well, they don't want to consider them their own people.
Okay. So people
like the Russians.
Were Russian. Okay. They considered other. Got you. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
What about did you see the video of the tanks that were supposedly smoldering on the bridge? I can't remember the location.
Listen, I love these. Yeah, and they're coming out with videos too of how anti-war protesters in St. Petersburg in Russia are getting beat up by the police. I'm sure the police is doing something that they shouldn't be doing, but I love how the focus is always on, oh my God, like the Russians are terrible people. And look at these poor pro-Ukrainian people. Yeah.
I almost, I haven't today really, I've just seen a few clips for just like really a minute or two, but I'm almost inclined to go to RT right away and see what they're saying, you know?
I mean, here's the thing too. I made a decision not to pay too much attention to it too, because it draws me in emotionally so much. And I get so frustrated when I hear people talking about, oh, you're just lying about this. You know, Putin's this evil person. You know, the whole Donbass area, it's those people who are killing the poor Ukrainians.
Mhm.
And that's not the story at all.
So, main culprit, would you say, is NATO or?
Well, that's the thing too, because why was the U.S. coming into Ukraine?
Mhm.
Forgot to mention that. And why were they giving them all of this funding? Because they wanted Ukraine to join NATO.
Right.
They wanted it to become part of the EU. And so, but at the same time, why do you need Ukraine to become part of it? And it's funny because you look at the territories, like the countries around Russia, how many of them are part of the EU? How many of them are part of NATO? Almost all of them. So that was also, I believe, a tactic by the US government to try to weaken Russia, to pretty much say, we're on the border and we're watching you.
Right.
And so you can't do that to Putin when it comes to Ukraine, especially considering how many ethnic ethnic Russians live.
So do you think Putin lost patience and felt like he was maybe getting jerked around? He's like, okay,
here's the thing. Okay, I've been waiting since 2014 for Putin to take over the Donbas area and make that a part of Russia.
So you were expecting this to happen?
I was hoping it would happen for years.
Wow.
And I'm actually happy that it's finally happening. Because to me, that's the only way that we could get peace. I mean, we've been at war for 8 years. How much more of these bombs can the innocent people take? You know, what is the solution? We have Russian separatists fighting, but the war is still going on. So what's the next step to take? It would have to be invading or basically taking over a region that's willing to join Russia.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Wow, that's great stuff there. It did seem like, I mean, my understanding is limited, but they were almost like using the front line as a training ground to like test weapons and such.
That too. Listen, there's so much going on. There's also another theory that they want the eastern part of Ukraine, which is where all the fighting is going on, is because they're saying they could have used that land for fracking. So that's another reason why the western side wanted to invade and take over the east side. There's so many theories. Yeah, and testing out weapons.
Who do you think the biggest threat to world peace is?
I'm about to get blocked in a country that starts with the letter I and ends with the letter L.
Well, we're on Rockfin right now, so.
I mean, listen, you can't even talk about Israel these days without getting called anti-Semitic, even though I'm half Jewish.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Israel. Do you think Israel is the biggest threat to world peace?
Well, I mean, why are we in the Middle East? Why are we fighting those wars? Who got us into those wars? It was Israel. Also, when the Soviet Union fell apart, and this is another reason why I really liked Ryan Dawson and I was following him. So when the Soviet Union fell apart, the Russian Jews were basically given a choice where you could migrate to Israel. And I always thought that was so weird. Why are we allowed to go to Israel out of all places? Well, it turns out because the more people you have, the smaller you can make Palestine and the bigger you can make Israel. So, yeah.
I think it was, I can't remember I don't know if it was Friedman or Wexner, but I got to look it up. So don't quote me on who it was, but they were basically talking about during that time period. I can't remember if it was exactly right after the war or it was in the latter half of.
After the Soviet Union fell apart.
It might have, no, I think that was the time period. I think you're right. And they were trafficking them out. It was like $1 million a pop for like on these like private jets, like for any Jew, like you could pay. And so they were trafficking Jews out of the Soviet Union.
There was a lot of sex trafficking too, which ties to the whole Maxwell thing. It's funny because growing up, like our mothers are always very paranoid of foreigners. And yeah, they always want us to stay away from them. And I always wondered why. And it's like, oh, because when the Soviet Union fell apart, there was everything. There was sex trafficking. I mean, yeah, being trafficked to Israel, pretending to be a babysitter. Well, it was like an ad. Hey, you want to be a babysitter? You show up there and you end up being a sex slave. I mean, those are some stories. But listen, some people also move there. They love their life there. They live peacefully. So some got lucky, some didn't. But anytime a country falls apart, you're going to expect a lot of corruption.
Yeah, a crisis opportunity for sure. War debris. Do you consider yourself to be Jewish, even though you're half? Or what does that mean to you?
Listen, It's like I took a DNA test. It said 50% Ashkenazi, 50% Eastern European.
Okay.
So what am I supposed? Yeah, I'm not. So my father is Russian, and he's Russian Orthodox, which is the Christian religion, and that religion is paternal. So that's and I was baptized. That's the religion I was born in. Well, I was raised in. So if I had to pick a religion, I mean, I guess I'd be Russian Orthodox. I don't really. I'm not a part of any religion at this point in my life. So Judaism, being Jewish, Ashkenazi, it's just something I identify with ethnically.
Okay.
But there's also the thing, okay, you're ethnically this, but culturally you're something else, you know? So my mother, ethnically Jewish, but culturally Russian.
Right.
It's all a big question mark, and I feel like in the 21st century too, it's all about identity politics and who are you and all these labels. And it's just like, good Lord.
Yeah.
I don't take it too seriously. Yeah.
What about, because you're from, originally Ukraine, right? But you're a New Yorker, a native New Yorker.
New York.
Lots of Jewish people in New York. I would guess most of them are supportive of Israel, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them are. But I mean, I don't blame them. You don't know the story. You don't know what's going on. And you can't criticize it without being called anti-Semitic.
Does the state of Israel speak for all Jews?
No, how can they speak for all Jews? And you'll find Jews in every corner of this planet. So
does criticizing Israel make you anti-Semitic?
Of course not. I said it, so it must be true.
That's the thing, though.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why is it you could criticize every country except this one? I mean, we criticize the U.S. We love the U.S., but this is far from a perfect country, too.
It's a bit of an elephant in the room, I would say, even still. I mean, when you think about name your conservative talking head, even in the alternative media, there's one country that they tend to not talk about, and that's Israel. And I'm thinking of people I've worked with that I really respect, too. But I'll name one I haven't worked with. Steve Bannon. When does Steve Bannon ever talk about Israel in any sort of critical
I think it's important to know you're not criticizing the Jewish people.
Right. It's the state.
You're criticizing the government that's controlling all of them. So there's a huge difference between that. This isn't about being anti-Semitic. It's being critical about a government that has all these policies which are killing others.
Right.
So.
Right. And the double standard too, how they don't have to admit they have nuclear weapons, and therefore their nuclear weapons are not regulated internationally, even though it's like an open secret. Everybody knows Israel has nuclear weapons.
There's a lot going on. And the amount that we send there too every single year, the billions.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's gross. How much money American taxpayers are, they get it stolen from them by the government, who then give those funds to people who give zero craps about you or me or our country and they're mostly in government, right? They're not like the normal people over there.
And it's really sad too, because in New York you see that too. You see the tension between like the Palestinians that live here and the Jews. It's, I don't know. Listen, I wish we could all get along, but there's definitely, I should show you videos. You see them fighting in the street, like in Brooklyn where I live. It's ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's kind of sad there. How does this problem get better, do you think?
Let's cut the spending. That's step one. I don't know. I mean,
just talking about it is a start.
Yeah.
Because, I was brought up, you were brought up Christian, you said Orthodox, Russian. I was brought up Christian as well, a different denomination. But, my understanding of Israel after all of that was almost non-existent.
Listen, I had no idea. It's before we moved to the U.S., my mom had a choice, either come to Israel or the U.S.
Wow.
So I could have very well grown up there, and I probably would have no idea what was really going on. So it's.
You glad your mom decided to come here instead?
Well, after what I've learned, yeah. Oh God, I could just imagine all the anti-Semitic comments after this.
Oh,
I mean-
sure. Well, she's Jewish, people.
Oh God,
Let it be known.
How dare you? I'm one of the chosen ones.
What do you think about that?
What does it even mean? Yeah, I think it's all ridiculous. What does it mean to be the chosen one? Chosen for what? I mean,
That was just a joke, people.
Yeah.
I needed a nickname when I started out YouTubing, so I was just like, I'm the
Listen.
chosen one because I'm a black sheep. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I was going with.
listen,
I don't actually think I'm one of the chosen ones, but some people do, and you don't agree with
It's
that.
also
sounds-
here's the thing too. People think, okay, so we have like Epstein, we have Maxwell, who all have Jewish ancestry, and
Yeah.
they all have ties to Israel. And so this idea is that these people think that they're superior. So the mistake that people make is you think that they're practicing Jews. You think that they represent the Jewish culture. They don't. They just use that Jewish identity to pretty much exercise their superiority over you.
Mhm.
They don't care. They don't know what Shabbos is. Like, they don't know any of the customs.
Mhm.
Yeah, so to me, it's just, yeah.
It's more of a superiority thing than
Yeah,
anything to
it's-
do with
listen.
religion or culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
They just use that to say, oh, hey, for this reason, I'm better than you.
Well,
But they don't
Guggenheim,
represent.
I think it was Eileen Guggenheim, said that to her daughter. I think it was her daughter. Basically,
Maria Farmer.
yeah, like we're better than them. Basically, was the idea. So it's there. I think it's in every race to a certain degree. That sort of supremacy ideology.
Yeah, it's especially now. I mean, everyone's now talking about white supremacists, and there are a bunch of idiots too.
Mhm.
Like, really, you think you're better just based on your skin color? Like, they're
Mhm.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, the supremacy is present in every single group that you can imagine. But the one that's being highlighted right now is the white supremacy, and the one that's kind of swept under the rug is this Jewish supremacy.
Jewish supremacy. Yeah, I would say black supremacy too.
That
If we're being
we're
really-
opening up the
Oh,
Pandora's
we're
box
being
to
fearless
all
today,
the
folks. We're being
controversial
fearless.
topics.
Yeah, we are.
Can I just say?
Yeah, go. What's up?
But I was a teacher for 8 years. I
Okay.
kept my mouth shut. I made sure even if I ever went out to like a party, don't catch me holding a drink and doing whatever. And now it's just like everything's coming out of the open.
Isn't it like relieving? It's
It
like
is.
psychologically relieving,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
crazy. It is, but okay, so I stayed quiet this whole time. Meanwhile, I have coworkers who are basically posing for like softcore porn in a
What?
way. Yeah, it's
Teachers?
Yeah, there was like one teacher in particular. That's a whole different story. But also, if you see,
Can we hear it? Or
but here's like a lighter version of it.
Okay.
Lips of TikTok.
yeah, the
So-
Twitter
oh,
account,
my
right?
Lord,
Yeah,
yeah, and-
he like posts funny videos of
I
these
think it's a female
crazy
that runs it,
liberals. Yeah, on Twitter.
Yeah, and holy crap, these teachers coming in dressed in full drag every single day to work and talking about 5-year-olds, teaching them how to give oral sex. Like, this is insane. What's going on? Why did I behave for 8 years? Like, not that I wanted to do any of those things either, but I kept so quiet.
Yeah.
I never let
Yeah.
my political beliefs get out.
Yeah. I don't know if it was as bad or maybe worse, but similar, an educational environment. I'm talking about university. It was an experience I had, once the pandemic, kind of that area, that 2020 area, I was just like, F it, man. Like, I'm going to say what I think. And likewise, it was like so psychologically like relieving to finally say what I think, after years of being on this like restrictive, almost claustrophobic suffocation of censorship culture.
People need to see other people too, like in the media, online. They need to see others who they could relate to. Like, oh, you think the same way as I do? Thank God I'm not the only one who thinks that.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. It was, which was one of the most enjoyable things for me, is I was like learning through the internet. I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Other people see through this,
Isn't it funny? You feel like you learned more from the internet now than you did like being in college for 4 years.
Oh, for sure, for
Like,
sure. I was
it's
talking
ridiculous.
about it with Bree last night, and we both contend we wish we hadn't gone to college. Again, it's not that it was like a bad experience per se, but it was just so unnecessary. I think it's a scam.
And the stuff that they're teaching, they're making
I think
social
it's
justice
oh
warriors.
yeah, it's such a racket. It's like they're scamming you for the opportunity for them to propagandize you. That's like a lot of what goes on, I think. And in that sense, I really discourage people from going to university. Not that, I don't know, maybe there's some young people tuning in right now, but
trade school, hey, that's the way to go.
Yeah, or just be patient making that decision, because that's
also most schools are now requiring this. So
yeah, the shot, yeah. Which wow, that's in that sense, I almost wish it would have happened, because then I probably wouldn't have gone to college. Norman Smith says college is indoctrination.
Absolutely. Did you have this too, or did anyone else watching it? Because I remember looking back on my years during college, I was so angry. And I remember just, you're sitting in class and all these professors are just telling you the whole world is against you, and it's racist, and it's sexist, and it's this and that.
Oh, you had that experience too?
Oh, yeah, all the time. And then, and you have all this white privilege and stuff. And it's like, how are you just going to generalize a whole group of people?
You went to NYU, or where did you go?
No, I went to Brooklyn College.
Brooklyn, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what it was, Nadia? I had very similar experiences. By the time I was a senior, I remember being in a media class and being angry. And I was just like, and it was really, I remember specifically, it was like this weird presentation about how most online sports discussion forums include white males, and there's some incidents of
they're the enemies right now.
Offensive. I don't know. It was weird. And then one guy's like, "Is there a chance this is not all websites or not all online discussion forums?" And the teacher, his name was Jason something or other, younger guy. And he's like, "Oh, am I not making that clear?" And I'm like, I almost like yelled at him. I was like, "No, you're not making that clear." And I remember being very mad during that period of time. And likewise, it was the same class. They were just, I can't remember what the exact context was, but it just seemed like they weren't giving a fair shake to fathers. I can't remember what the topic was. And I was like, well, it's also difficult to be a father, and it's kind of thankless in a way that being a mother isn't. And he was just so the other end of the spectrum in terms of the conversation, which is, it's not that I disagree with that, but it's like you're not really giving a fair shake to both sides. But yeah, I had a similar experience. I remember being angry, and it wasn't until really I was a senior that I was like, man, this is getting way over the top, because it did get worse. I think from my freshman year to my senior year, I think it just got more and more overt and more entrenched in the culture on campus. And it sounds like you had a very similar experience.
Especially, it's like white men are the enemy now. Why are they so bad? We don't know what they've been through in this world. They're just going to generalize. Yeah, and I feel like also as a female, I'm noticing men get a lot of shit these days too. And it's like, yeah, exactly. If a woman wants an abortion, it's strictly it's her choice. But hello, she would never have that baby if it wasn't for the sperm, if it wasn't for the male too. Doesn't he have a choice too? Doesn't he have a say in that matter?
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, could a guy be a single parent on his own? Like, would that be legally?
We've seen that happen. But I just think, I don't know. I think what's going on now too, people are trying to claim that, we're trying to help minorities in some way. And no, you're actually making it worse. You're making you're making people hate you. This whole talk about how white people are all evil. Listen, yes, some are evil, but you can't just say, have you met every single white person in this world?
Right.
So, you can't say, oh, women, we have it. Like, we're better than men. You could say that. If a guy says, oh, I'm better than a woman, holy crap. Mm-hmm. Like, you'd be called a sexist scum pig and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, I don't know. I was talking about something that happened recently where, it's just like, if like an older woman hits on me, it's like nothing, right? But if it like that's fine. I don't take offense to that.
Older woman, hey.
But it's like if a man does that to a woman, it's like it's different. It's different, right? Yeah. And
you can't. Men. I remember Tim Pool. Sometimes he annoys me. Sometimes I like him. But he was talking about on his show too how there was this study done and how like younger men are less hesitant to even come up to women now because they feel like they're going to be seen as a predator.
Oh, you mean more hesitant, or?
Yeah, like they refuse to.
Oh, more hesitant.
Yeah,
Okay.
they refuse to even speak to a girl that they like. You know, if they see a cute girl walking in the streets, they're not going to go and try to talk to her. They're going to go on Tinder, you know, and hope to find her.
It's the worst choice you can make, fellas, is to be on those
say
apps.
hi, and if she has a problem with it, screw her. I mean, if you're a creep, yes, stay away, but you're probably not.
Sure. Maybe that's what they want. Maybe that's part of the Me Too thing, is to, you know, the 6 foot social distancing.
Well, to tie it back to the whole Maxwell thing, Me Too. Remember, I think it was Maria Farmer who mentioned how the Me Too movement wanted nothing to do with the whole Epstein and Maxwell case.
I mean, that was something that was pointed out in 2020. It's like there's all this child trafficking and nobody's shrieking about it, right? I mean, you remember all that shrieking in 2017? I remember the shrieking, and some of it was warranted shrieking. But when children are involved, and the most powerful people on the planet, more or less, the shrieking stops. No more shrieking. So we need more shrieking about Epstein, Me Too people. But it's, I think, co-opted. Maybe it was a planned operation from the start. I don't know.
They could have. I also think I'm going to get so much shit for this. At one point, you should also take some responsibility, just in the sense of the Me Too movement. Let's say you're a grown female, you're an actress, and you're being told, hey, go to this guy's room in the late evening. What do you think is going to happen? You know?
You're going to play Scrabble.
Yeah. A different kind of Scrabble, you know?
Bingo!
I know about that. Yeah. That's the game.
Yeah. You shouldn't fear taking crap for that, even if you're a man. I think that's maybe being too idealistic. But this is a Jewish woman saying this, folks. Lord. So take heed. But again, it's like, even if which I do agree, I think adults should take responsibility for their actions when they can, right? And when they should, which is usually whenever they can. And yeah, you say that in that context as a certain.
It's like, I'm like pro rape or something.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. That's what happened at the. That was on the first day. We met on the second day. I was talking to this older, black lady who just goes to trials because she's interested in them, and this.
That's gonna be us in like 20 years.
This Argentine journalist, she overheard us, and she thought I was being like a rape apologist, and I was just like, well, no, but there is a difference between a 24-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Exactly.
Was my point. And she's like, oh, you need to take responsibility for the fact that you didn't get a shot. And I was like, what?
Listen,
what are you talking about?
I mean, on one hand, look, we all make mistakes, but at the same time, when you're in your 20s, you're still a kid, but you have a lot more experience. You have a lot more knowledge than a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
You know,
you're also an adult. So there's that. There's the legal. You got to deal with that once you turn 18 too. But again, de facto, in the justice system, I don't really see. I mean, life isn't fair, right? But there are groups who, they just based on who they are or who they aren't, they just get treated differently by the justice system in this country.
In some ways, yeah.
Whether it's class or that's probably the biggest one.
But that's what I found interesting too. Again, to tie it back to like the Maxwell trial, this woman had a $7 million defense team. Maybe she was paying even more. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, they couldn't even get her off the hook for this. So at this, I do think that if you have a whole bunch of money, you could probably get the best lawyers, you could get the best resources, but do they always work?
Right, there is a limit to that. Yeah, and I was actually talking about this with Sean yesterday. I was on Sean Atwood's show, and I just expressed to him, I was like, yes, I contended that I believe Maxwell would have been whacked by now, were it to happen, but I still don't understand why she's alive. Her dad was obviously way more important than she was, and he became a liability. Jean-Luc Brunel obviously became a liability.
That was out of nowhere.
That was crazy.
On the ends of dead.
That was crazy.
I wake up one morning, I check my phone, he's dead.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, at La Santé prison in Paris. Cameras weren't working. It was officially reported, and then that was retracted. And this is something I didn't know either, but on the 11th of March, he had an impending court date whereby it was, in their legal system, a pretty decent opportunity for him to start clearing his name. And he kills himself shortly before that. So why is that? It kind of begs the question, along with the timing, happening almost immediately, it seems, after Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrew agreed to settle out of court, which came as disappointing to a lot of people. What did you think about that?
I know. I don't know. I'm not sure what to think. I mean, I know you kind of touched on this yesterday on your show. And it's like, how much is Virginia innocent at the same time? But look, this is a girl, the way I see it, her whole life, she just had like cycles of abuse over and over. So this is all she knew. It's how to be taken advantage of. And we don't know what was going on behind the scenes. We don't know what the royal family was doing to her. A lot of victims, like Maria Farmer was talking about, how she was getting hunted by Ghislaine, basically, being threatened.
Yep.
And this was Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
Even though she's tied to the Mossad, the royal family, they have their connections. They have their people too.
MI6. So,
who knows what they were doing to her? And if it wasn't for Virginia, she doesn't need to get a lot of credit. We wouldn't have a lot of these lawsuits. She was the one that brought a lot of this out in the open.
Yes, and that's why I think partially people are so, along with what we just mentioned about criticizing women in those situations, the fact that she is the most helpful witness, I think makes people very hesitant to criticize her and to want to. Certainly, I think that's the case with me, and even seeing how that line again between journalism activist and someone who's friendly or becoming a friend blurs, but do you have because just referring to my interview last night with Bree, she expressed similar. She's like, I'm going to say it for all the guys out there. She said, what did she say? She's not telling the whole truth or something like that.
Maybe.
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many questions. If only we could actually sit down to her, like with her, and talk to her about all of this.
Yeah.
Listen, we don't know. I mean, if I'm being offered $16 million, shoot, would you want to reject that?
Can we go a little higher?
Yeah, that too. But I mean, she has 3 kids. She has a husband.
You know what it's like is recently I think it was El Mencho and going to Mexican drug war here. His daughter and her boyfriend, they were trying to hold up some arrest warrants, and they did it with $250. So then it begs the question, why did they accept that for $250? Why didn't they ask for more? Well, it's because they are afraid probably that they're going to get taken out. It's like $250 in your life is a lot more useful than $50,000 that you can't spend the next day.
Yeah, because keep in mind, Virginia she lives in Australia, which they said that was intentional because she wanted to get away from the U.S. and Maxwell and Epstein. And she lives in a high security building too, I believe.
They live in a mansion. So, it's like $2 million property or something like that.
Honestly, I'm kind of torn. I'm not sure what to think. I think on one hand, you can only put up so much for a fight before it's just like, listen, I'm getting a settlement. Why not?
Yeah. Especially if your life's getting threatened, which may or may not have happened.
We don't know. Like, listen, we know some stuff, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Right. I mean, look at when we were watching the trial, Kriston Harris.
Yeah.
We don't know, but he said he was asking Isabel Maxwell, Ghislaine's sister, about sitting on the World Economic Forum, and all of a sudden his laptop gets stolen the next day. Yes. Was that a coincidence? Was that related to her? We don't know.
Do I have bioweapons in my body because I ate the pizza? We don't know.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see him the next day. I was like, she put poison on that pizza.
Someone said, step away from the pizza. Hey, away from the pizza. It was good pizza, though, I have to admit. But we are at our hour here. We're actually 5 minutes past our hour here. Nadia,
what didn't we talk about?
Yeah, great chat about Ukraine, Russia, Putin, Epstein, Maxwell, Mossad, MI6.
Virginia.
Yeah. And
also, how do you say her name? Is it Guthrie? How do you say her last name?
I say Giuffre. I don't know
Giuffre?
if that's accurate. Because her father's name is Roberts. Her husband's name is Giuffre. So, yeah. And people can support you on Twitter, PayPal, and you have a YouTube channel in the show notes.
I think after this video, they're just gonna ban me, even though I have no videos.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you this file and you can post it. And you know what you can do? You can post. I'll send you all the video reports we did over the course of the trial. And then we went to the MDC in Brooklyn, which is where Ghislaine is being held right now. Let's just look at comments here. Norman Smith says there's no justice, only just us.
Pretty much.
Amy says, thank you. Thanks for checking in. Folks, student of life, curriculum keeps me in a state of radical amazement. I like that. Yeah, so where can people support Nadia? And do you have plans to further your citizen journalism career?
Yes, I would like to, but it's been a slow news year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was hoping I could cover at least the Prince Andrew case.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could talk about the Giva Brunel, but all that just kind of got dismissed. So yeah, you guys, please support me, follow me. Hopefully I'll have some videos posted soon. And yeah, you'll get to see my face a lot more.
Awesome. And remember, to refuse to bend the knee to the mandates here in New York City. And you're actually moving, right? You're trying to leave this place.
God, if I'm going to be allowed to leave New York City.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Because we're pretty much prisoners in this city.
Mm-hmm.
Can't even go to a restaurant without showing your papers.
Yeah.
Can't even ride the subway without getting dirty looks for not wearing a mask. And so, yeah, New York City. It used to be cool. It used to be fun. And now it's just a hellhole.
Yes. Support, folks, please. She lost her job for that. Now she's doing this on the side when she can.
Yes, I would love to.
Florida, not a bad spot. I just came from there. Yeah, so
just the crocodiles. Yeah, they
Crocs,
scare me a little.
The Florida man concept. You know, people shooting. Florida's crazy, but it is free. You know, freedom is
a lot freer than New York.
Yeah, and counterintuitively safer, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. This will be available anywhere podcasts can be found. Video broadcasts on Rockfin. Also broadcasting to Facebook, One Addy Ads, Addy Addican, and Twitter, One Addy Ads. My website is addyads.11 spelled out. buymeacoffee.com/addyads to support all, as well as on Subscribestar or Patreon. Venmo, Cash App, also available for my Americanos. Buy me a coffee for everybody else. PayPal for Nadia. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Stay frosty, and we'll see everybody next time.